Hey everybody, what's up and welcome back to the StarCraft 2 Ownage Shack. It is David here bringing you, at long last, Master League Quest episode 35. So for those of you who are just tuning in and haven't seen my previous video that I made just a couple days ago, which explains why I was away for 4 years and what my plans are for the channel going forward, please go ahead and watch that now if you're interested. If not, I'm absolutely thrilled that you're going to join me here for episode 35 of what has been a very delayed, but I hope somewhat anticipated next Master League Quest episode. So the last time I made a Master League Quest episode, it was still Wings of Liberty. It was almost 4 years ago, and I was in Diamond League. And well, it turns out in Legacy of the Void, I am still in Diamond League, so I'm going to be working my way up with you guys here, and hopefully we can finish this thing by the end of the year. That would be awesome to reach Master League by 2017. So, as you can see here, this is a Terran versus Protoss on Orbital Shipyard, and what I'm going to be doing here is my very standard and preferred build, which is the 1-Rax Reaper expansion. It's a really solid build, and I love using against Protoss because it's very safe, and with that Reaper you can scout most of the cheeses that they'll throw at you and allow you to defend them pretty easily. Now, the one key thing I do all the time against Protoss, and you can see I've already done it here, is I send a scout out at about 17 supply. That's absolutely essential because there are a lot of cheese builds that are easily identifiable if you send that early scout. And what you're looking for there is, of course, the expansion. That's the major point. Now, meanwhile, back at home, I'm trying to take my expansion, but because I saw the probe was coming in there, I actually pulled my SCV away to the side just to make it look like I wasn't expanding, and then I waited for the probe to exit, brought my SCV back as such, and built the expansion. That way I just conceal my build a little bit better. It cost me a few extra minerals and lost mining time later on down the road because the expansion's a little late, but it's worth it. Of course, it's only worth it if you actually kill the probe after, otherwise you'll just go back in there and see it. So that's what I did right there. Now I'll send that Reaper across the map. Now if you'll notice on the mini-map, my scout already revealed to me that this was indeed an expansion play by him. So now the Reaper's going to go in there and try to get a peek at what kind of tech he's going for, at least see the unit composition. Meanwhile, factory's going down, always open with the early factory against Protoss. You just need those factory units to defend some of those cheeses. So the Reaper's over here lying in wait, and he will be entering my opponent's base here, and unfortunately it's kind of a guess where to exit, or sorry, where to enter on this map. You just never know. But I actually, as far as I'm concerned at this point, when I saw the Stalker there, I realized that's probably all the information I need at this point in the game. And the reason for that is because it's very rare that you'll see a Stalker for anything but some kind of Blink Stalker or Dark Shrine play or something, anything with a Twilight Council basically. So right now my thought is Blink Stalkers. That's probably the most likely if I see that Stalker. And so that means I'm going to be cranking out siege tanks double time. Now normally I do make early siege tanks in this matchup just for safety, and it's exactly because of builds like this. I absolutely hate losing to early Blink Stalker rushes. They're very frustrating to defend against without siege tanks. And with siege tanks it's basically a free win. But you do need to take some preparations. Now, given that given that I think it's Blink Stalkers, I do put the bunker down. But in retrospect, that was probably very premature because the fact is this guy actually did build the Nexus, right? So if any Blink Stalker play were coming, it's probably going to be much later. So whether or not you want to build a bunker is up to you. I think it was a mistake in this map. I think that just the siege tanks alone would have been more than enough to defend me. And you're going to see throughout this game, my defense to this anticipated Blink Stalker rush, which never actually comes, is quite overkill. 2 bunkers, a bunch of Marines. I also delay my 3rd and 4th gases just because I want to get more Marines out and build my barracks a little early, as you can see there. This is all great if the Blink Stalkers were coming, but I should have seen that, of course, he did take that expansion, and any Blink Stalker play would be very, very late down the road. So, a little mistake there by me. Like you guys know, I'm not perfect at this game at all. I'm just, you know, a casual player, so I do make tons of mistakes, even in these games that I show you. And in fact, I try to show you some of the better games that I play. So some of my mistakes are even more egregious when in the games I don't show you, of course. So all the while, I'm just going to continue massing up those Marines, which is very good. I usually get about 3 or 4 siege tanks, and then I'll feel safe. Of course, like I said, I was expecting Blink Stalkers, so I'm going to lean more heavily towards more siege tanks. And now that I feel safe, I'll take those extra gases and start working my way up to the starport, which is a very important building in Terran vs. Protoss now, as I'm sure you know. Without the starport early enough, you won't have that Liberator count you need to do your first push. So really, it's absolutely essential that you get that starport. And you're going to see here, you can already see that the minerals are stacking up huge right now for me, which is a very big mistake. And it actually cost me quite a few units at a very early stage of the game. And that was, of course, like I said before, because I did delay those 3rd and 4th gases to make those early barracks. So the whole build order basically got thrown off here, and that left me with a massive amount of minerals compared to gas. Not a situation you want to be in. E-bays were delayed as well. Normally I get those around the 5-minute mark, and here you can see they're coming in more around 6. Now, a huge mistake right about here. You see STEM researching on that tech lab in that barracks. Now, watch this as I mistakenly lift every single barracks and cancel the research. A terrible mistake. And not only that, this annoying siege tank is right in the way of the barracks from landing there. How this siege tank parked there in the first place with the factory there is beyond me, but there you go. So, what should have been a nice timing with combat shields and Stimpack finishing at the same time is now this weird repurposed build order with a very late stim, relatively on-time combat shields, late upgrades, late liberators, late everything because of a Blink Stalker rush that never came. So at this point I realize my folly, I empty the bunkers and I unsiege my tanks. This guy's expanded to his 3rd base, it's time I do the same. And with those siege tanks you feel very safe. But you'll see here, every Terran vs. Protoss, as soon as I expand, I like to build missile turrets at my expansion, my 2nd base rather, and I like to turret up my main. And because I have such a ridiculous surplus of minerals right now, this is absolutely no problem. And it's just awesome to do this kind of stuff, because without it, you can actually lose to Warp Prism harassment, and with my current skill level and APM, dealing with Warp Prism harassment is very hard. It requires incredible attention and awareness of where your army is at all times, and I simply don't have that right now. So for me, it's a lot easier just to turret up the base and just repel the Warp Prism rather than deal with it once it gets in there. So 7 turrets does the trick right there on this map. Meanwhile, just still massing up units. My plan right now is to eventually rush him with enough Liberators, so before he hits that critical mass with tons and tons of High Templar, that's normally the timing I want to hit at. Otherwise, my unit control just is not good enough with bio to dodge those storms. So you can see I got 2 medevacs, and now I'm just going to be doing straight Liberator production. Meanwhile, making those depots, trying to make sure I don't get supply blocked, another huge problem of mine. Adding extra turrets for more defense, and I believe my upgrades, yeah, you can't see them on the engineering bays there, but they should be finishing up shortly here in preparation for my push. Now, I do like also to get 1 extra turret on this map right in that location you saw there, because a lot of the time the Protoss player will see that your expansion isn't or is covered by turrets, and in response to that they're going to go straight for the main. A very annoying thing to deal with. Like I said, I absolutely can't stand dealing with the depth harassment in my base. It gets me very stressed out, and I play this game to have fun, so I'm going to build as many turrets as I like, at least until I get more APM. So you can see the Liberators are now coming out in full form. I've got my upgrades finished, I believe, and the armory's going up to start that 2-2. I've also got a reactor on the factory just to get some Widow Mines. I'm kind of experimenting with parking Widow Mines underneath my Liberators to try to prevent Stalkers from running up and shooting them down. So we'll see how that works out for me here. I also put a turret right there at my 3rd base because of potential Dark Templar harassment later. Another extremely frustrating thing to deal with as a Terran player. As you can see right on cue, he marches right by before that turret goes up. So like I said, I can't stand this kind of stuff, but and he was actually a very smart opponent. He sent 3 DTs in and he sent 1 to each base. I mean, how frustrating is that to deal with? And as you can see, I'm very late pulling those SCVs. I've probably lost at least 10 to 15 workers here, if not more. And so the DTs are now cleaned up, but look at the damage they did. They eradicated my worker lines. I have no SCVs there, and my naturals pretty much broke. You can see 10 SCVs less than there should be, and I'm also missing some on the gas. So, given that I just took huge damage to my economy, I figure, at least my army is still intact, and he wasted some army going in there with DTs, so I'm going to launch a massive attack and just hope for the best here. I'll also build a bunker back at home just in case those DTs come back, because that's something very annoying to deal with. Like I said, that's kind of the theme of this episode almost, is the things I do not like facing in my Terran versus Protoss. So you can see here, this is very key. I'm watching the minimap very intently as I'm doing all of this, because if you get caught out of position with unsieged tanks and liberators, you're basically dead. There's nothing you can do. So I look over there, I'll throw down a scan just to see where the army is, and this is going to allow me to position the tanks. I spread them out as much as possible. Tanks siege up first, then the liberators in front of the tanks. So he has Colossi at this point, which I already knew because I saw the robotics support bay, and I stim the Marines back. You can see he launches a huge amount of Psy Storms, which actually does devastating amounts of damage to my army, but I still have enough to clean up the rest of this stuff. Now, he hasn't left the game immediately. You're going to see he's a little bit frustrated here, actually. And I would be too. And because I saw a bunch of probes transferring, I just throw all those... I just put one Liberator there to stop the mining at that base, and I push on towards his main. Now, you can see the bunker at my main there, or my expansion, is paying off in spades at the moment. Meanwhile, I push in with this army, and in retrospect, I kind of regret this decision. I think it would have been a better idea, perhaps, to just go for that fourth base instead, because I push up a very narrow ramp here. Now, siege tanks are good in this kind of situation where you have a very large supply leak, but my unit control isn't the best here. I'm very late putting the Widow Mines down, and he's massing up at will. I already saw High Templar. I should have probably I should have probably known, pardon my bad grammar there, that he was going to mass up Templar. And look at this sick amount. Oh my god, like it's just disgusting amounts of storms. Basically kill all of my bio. His one mistake, of course, being that he lost the Templar in the process. So now that that army's at low health, without any medevac support, that medevac's out of energy, and the siege tank's almost dead, I'm going to pull back to my reinforcements. Meanwhile, he does a warp in over there to try to stop that Liberator harassment. We'll see how that Liberator does with that upcoming range nerf. I'm very curious to see what that'll be like. I don't think it's going to be a problem, personally. I think it'll actually make this matchup potentially a little bit better in the early game for Protoss. So we'll see how that goes. Meanwhile, as you can see, kind of a bad engagement for me because my army was split up and not everything is engaging, and the Colossi are kind of just laying waste to that bio. But at any rate, that's enough for him to leave the game there. So that concludes the commentary and Master League Quest episode 35. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave a like if you did enjoy it, and please give me any suggestions in the comments. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. I look forward to seeing you next time.